Hi, I'm Kevin Fogarty with Canon USA. I'm the product manager for the recently announced PTZ cameras. We're so excited to have these cameras in the market, but we're even more excited to be here today at Abel Cine in Brooklyn talking to Jeff Lee, Director of Education here at Abel.
How's it going?
How's it going with you?
Good seeing you.
It's great to be here. Brooklyn is beautiful. You've got a lot of experience in remote productions, using PTZ cameras in exciting and unique ways. And I wanted to just kind of start off by hearing a little bit about the type of things you do here at Abel, maybe as a Director of Education, and then how that relates to supporting products like these and remote productions and those kinds of stuff.
So it's interesting, obviously when pre-pandemic times we had a facility like this, we were able to put students in and do classes in person. With the pandemic, everything shifted like the rest of the world. So now, of course, we're in an environment of everything has to be remote, including education. For us, looking at technology, it's really exciting because that's exactly what we're looking for. New tools that can help us, break that barrier of being remote but still have super high production quality. Right, and control too, that's obviously key. Right. That's something that's been missing. You could have the world's best camera plugged into your Zoom feed, let's say, but if the talent on the far end doesn't know how to control it, or simple things like focus that we take for granted, like we're using cinema lenses for today, for example, but if we were completely remote, controllability is super important too.
Yeah, that's something that you mentioned about control because, obviously there's just been an explosion in the remote and the streaming market, which is where these products are intended. But with that, there's not, the humans aren't there to operate all the cameras. So the only solution is a PTZ camera with high quality and remote control and streaming. So it does seem to fit. There's not, whether it's a church volunteers operating cameras or really just regular, employees operating cameras, it's going to have to be, remote control is certainly key to make it all happen. I've talked to other, customers over, as we've been, had these under NDA, how there was this kind of pandemic time where there was this rush to get online. Everyone wanted to do streaming, so, product was tight, manpower was certainly, also limited to get things set up, and so it was really just whatever they can do to get online and get a signal out to, wherever they want their customers or their, their audience. And now it's kind of looking, okay, now that we've got it online, we need to kind of step it up. We got to want to add more quality, want to add more features. So I think that, it's a good time in the market for these particular products, and also, as you're saying, the eye towards quality and, durability and making things just kind of look more professional, like you would have normally in an in-house setting.
If you're in a house of worship, or if you're in a building like this, you may have a control room and someone's using a control panel. But if you are operating 100% remotely, being able to just use, say, IP-based tools or an app is equally important, if not maybe more so these days.
So, with these products, we announced them just 2 days ago, so I think a lot of people are probably familiar with them, but just if not, across the board, 4K. We talked about image quality, 4K throughout, from the sensor through the lens. They really take and borrow technology from two of our main existing product categories. One, at the professional video side, so whether it be kind of an XF or an XA series pro camcorder, or maybe even on the cinema side, on the left as far as the imaging goes, and the PTZ side, or the pan-tilt side, we did have a long history in the network video solutions and even conferencing cameras. We kind of took those two halves and kind of, put the chocolate and the peanut butter together, to make something even better. And that's kind of what is representative in these products. Them all being 4K, them all being streaming capable, out to, if you're going to go right to Facebook Live, or you're going to do right to YouTube, you can do that with these. And, you mentioned about the control, and there's a lot of options, whether it's IP control. We've got, a controller that we've come out with, so you can control these directly from one of our Canon controller. Infrared remote control, we've got the web-based, we've got a Windows app that's going to come with the cameras. So there is, I think like you're saying, a lot of different options depending if you're, is this an infrastructure kind of install, or is just kind of one guy and a camera. We've kind of got that going for us.
One of the first things that we noticed when you shipped the cameras to us, I unboxed it, and I knew a little bit about it because we had spoken previously.
Sure.
But some of our engineering team had not much briefing, and I kind of did that on purpose, where I just put it on the counter and said, okay, have at it.
Throw it to the wolves.
Yeah, and and these guys are techies by nature, so they were like, okay, let's dive into it. Let's pick it apart. Let's see what we could do. Yeah. And to come up with this huge list of things that needed to go back to the factory and make corrections. And honestly, they came back to me and said, yeah, no, we love them.
That's great.
They were like, when? Actually, one of the first questions they asked was, when can we get our hands on this?
Sure.
Because they're eager to deploy in the field. To your point, there's been so many jobs and so many things that we've been working on over the past year, really, where it's like, oh, we just wish we had whatever that magic
Yeah.
thing that would take us over the finish line. And it was really, for them, they were just like, wow, this does a lot and checks all the boxes. You mentioned things like obviously high resolution and streaming options, which is key because we don't always know, right? So we're no longer in a world of here's an HDMI cord or an SDI cord when we're going to go to some production switcher and everyone knows their job and everything just happens. It's a lot of now, oh, we're going to be in the middle of the field. It's
Right.
going to be, we're in someone's house, we're in the hotel.
Right, bonded cellular from a farm, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this hotel has really bad Wi-Fi or really strict Wi-Fi policies or whatever, or corporate networks that are locked down.
Right,
They
yeah.
have no access out past their firewall. So there's a lot of these challenges now that are, maybe previously we didn't have to worry about. And nowadays, we're looking for as much compatibility, as much options as possible. So no matter what that technical hurdle is, we know we can overcome it.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, and just this is the as far as the indoor PTZs, these are the first two models, the CRN 300 and the CRN 500 on the high set. This is kind of the beginning of what will eventually be a fuller Canon lineup, right? So, we're certainly looking and we're excited to bring even more technology to the table, whether it be kind of more up the pyramid or down the pyramid, to even give more creative options, more creative control. For people that are shooting higher end, or even people shooting more towards the the lower end, we're going to be growing this market as well. So, I'm certainly excited to bring these to market, but also excited just because it's the beginning of a kind of a new Canon line of products.
Yeah, that's exciting. Like we've always known you guys in the PTZ world for like the really high-end, outdoor-capable, broadcast-centric.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
But it's exciting for us to see you guys bring a camera into sort of a different vertical, I suppose.
The traditional SDI out with the power cord and those kinds of things, and some kind of a control, to PoE plus, everything IP controlled, stream, control, power, one cable, simple, easy. Like you said, that's kind of the way it's going, and it certainly aids to the flexible nature of just kind of the system expanding to what you need wherever you are.
Yeah, and control is of course really important, and we're happy that Canon has done so much to put all of those levels of control, interconnectivity options. And you touched upon this earlier, but image quality obviously is super key too, because you could have great camera control, but the image is to no one's liking, then that doesn't do anyone any good. So another thing that the techs were super impressed with was just the overall image quality. They plugged into a 4K TV and they're immediately like, whoa, that's one of the best looking pictures we've seen just out of the box with no tweaking.
They have Canon Log 3, so if you go in post-production and you want to capture the full capabilities and then kind of fix it and, correct it in post. The CRN 500 has the 1-inch CMOS sensor, which is, kind of the same imaging engine as our very popular XF705. That's going to give you shallow depth of field, so you can do that subject isolation to kind of aid in creative control. It's going to give you the dual pixel autofocus to be able to lock in immediately. You're not hunting and looking.
We fired it up. We're like, yeah, we just felt intimately comfortable with it already. Again, especially for the engineering team, like I mentioned, we didn't give them a briefing.
Right.
It was kind of like, just here you go, and they were immediately able to play with the dual pixel autofocus. They were able to do the tracking where they had two of our techs walking back and forth.
Oh, the face, right.
Yeah, and we registered it to one of our techs, and as he entered frame or moved forward or backwards from the other person in shot, like the camera kept up, because of things like dual pixel autofocus,
Sure.
which we've always loved, and now that we have it in a product like this, it just adds another level of, especially for remote production, like, are we sure we did all these things? And now we don't need to worry that focus, because we know focus is going to be good,
Sure.
and all that, it just adds to the production value and also just the ease of use. We've been involved, a lot of our clients asking, how can we do a high quality shoot, whether it be an interview or, an EPK or something similar. How do I do this but safely, remotely, responsibly? So early on, I don't want to say it's the first, but it's one of the biggest projects that came early on during the pandemic was for the Emmy Awards.
Okay.
Last year, which was a huge deal for us. And
it's pretty big.
Yeah, for us it was a huge deal, kind of first time taking such a big, undertaking with regard to, the eyeballs on, this level of production. And it was live, so that added another level of complexity. So for us, that was exciting. We, and I can't take really any of the credit, the team spent a lot of time engineering a solution, which actually consisted of Canon 5D Mark IVs.
Okay.
Attached to a computer that we would deploy to nominee locations. And we had great camera control in that image and exposure. That was never a problem because we used Canon's EOS utility.
Okay.
Because we would remote in and production was taking a feed over teleconferencing type software. And we would remote in and just make adjustments on the local computer that we deployed. So if, white balance or ISO, autofocus, those type of things, we could easily adjust. So for us, not having any control of the framing was frustrating. It took us a little bit of time to walk everyone through, these issues. So if we had something like, PTZs where we could just dial in the web portal
Right.
We know the IP address in advance since we deployed the kits. We could just say, okay, don't worry about framing. I'll take care of it. You sit down, we'll tweak lighting, make sure your background is to your liking, and we'll just adjust everything else.
As you're talking, I'm realizing, I'm used to, from the manufacturer side, I'm used to, the customer's experience and how the pandemic has changed the way they're using our products and moving them, to more streaming and certainly wanting to maintain quality, if not initially, certainly over time as they're scrambling to kind of catch up, if you will. But as you're making this, you had I don't say it's a unique opportunity, but because you were, a content creative yourselves, you had the same experience as your customers do. Right. So that really, I think, just the way you're talking, that's kind of be a unique perspective and probably very, very helpful. Like you said, it was a learning experience. You had to get your content online rapidly, in quality, and then your customers are kind of wanting to do the same thing. So it seems like that's a great opportunity for you to kind of get the bumps out of it and then be able to roll something out. And you try something and you learn something, you share it with your customer, they're going to try something, they share with you, and it kind of helps everybody out. And that's that's just a great thing to hear, because everyone was struggling at that time, trying to get things done, trying to survive in a way. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things about this industry, though. I think we're used to a collaborative effort, right? When you're on set, doesn't matter the scale of the production, everyone's working as a team. Yeah. And nothing's changed with remote. It's just I can't say nothing's changed, but nothing's changed about the collaborative nature of it. Right. But we're obviously just a little bit separated and a little distant and working in new ways. But that to your point, that's exactly what happened. It's that sort of full circle of solutions coming around. There's also been a lot of other productions where it's maybe it's corporate based. Maybe you have a CEO doing their annual town hall or something, and they're used to doing it to a certain level of production, maybe for all the remote workers. And if the CEO, let's say, can't travel to the office, but still needs to address the rest of the staff, and there's let's say other C-levels or other executives that need to speak, we also help in those type of productions too, where it's not as glamorous as something like the Emmys, but it still requires that level of production quality that they expect. So
right, I would expect those CEOs and those even the universities, I think they're still expecting that high quality content. So it's really, products like these, I think would also still fit into that market.
When we're watching live television, there's a person cutting, or even just recorded television, there's always an editor, right? Because that's how they help drive the story, move the story along. And the same goes with live production in a remote world, right? You want to be able to either reframe a shot or punch in on a specific part of the frame that's important, whether it's a talking head or CEO to a nominee receiving their award. It would be more interesting if you could focus on certain elements of the scene or the room or whatever it might be. So having something like this certainly lends to that type of engagement that we're all, that producers everywhere, I think, are looking for.
On the control side, I know we're talking about the cameras. We got the RC IP100, the remote controller. We can control up to, I think it's like 99 IP cameras in one serial, so you can do a lot, with this one controller. That single person operation can do all those things.
With IP based like this, like here, we just put this on our network.
Right, we just this morning, right?
Yeah, this is on the Abel Cine network, and the camera's on the Abel Cine network, so it doesn't matter where you are. You could plug this into any Ethernet jack we have in the office. You could be, the rentals facility, which is all the way down there, or back to our integration team, and you could still be controlling the camera as long as you had a way to see picture. But the fact that you just click on a part of the image that you see on a web browser, and the camera moves right to that subject, so that opens up new levels of controllability. Instead of sitting there clicking your mouse trying to pan, a few millimeters, especially if you imagine you're remote and not next to the talent. You could just say, okay, well, there's a talent, double click, and camera snaps right to that. And it's stuff like that they were playing with, and they were telling me about these things too. And I didn't know that the camera supported this, but they were playing with for example, the face tracking, and being able to register one of the techs. So we had two of our techs just walking back and forth, kind of pretending to be like in a town hall or a kind of presentation, maybe like this. And because of the registration, one tech could move in front of or behind the other, and it would always maintain focus on the tech that was registered as the focus point.
So the cameras, certainly they do 4K, the UHD 4K, but they also do HD and other resolutions. Are you finding people or customers are kind of HD and then moving to 4K? Are they interested in 4K because it's 4K and thinking that, well, maybe I don't use it today, but at least I'll have it in the back pocket?
To your point, it's hard to broadcast 4K across the country. Even applications like Zoom are capped at HD, assuming you have the bandwidth. But the future-proofness, I think, is key. So we may not all be doing iMags, or the giant 4K jumbotrons.
Right.
But the idea that I can take advantage of that 4K file in the future, or I can record 4K, and even if I'm only going to zoom in a little bit, in post-production, I have that option to reframe and rescale and resize. And also just taking advantage of taking a 4K in terms of the capture, photo sites, or pixels, if you will, and being able to display it on an HD feed means you're using oversampling, and you get a really clean HD feed.
Correct. So for the connectivity, I think we mentioned, certainly it's got the SDI out, it's got the HDMI, it's got the IP, they're PoE plus powered, or you can have the regular, the regular adapter. With NDI included, we've got the license covered, there's no additional, kick in for that.
Nowadays, new builds, everything's going to be Cat 6, Cat 5 at the minimum, but probably Cat 6. So the fact that I could just build a space like this, have Cat 6 drops everywhere, by my electrician, and not have to worry about sending him a plot of, I need HDMI here, I need SDI here, I need Cat 6 and power here, so on. We can just literally tell the electrician, I need power here, here, and here, and run Cat 6 everywhere else. And then later with with the IT folks, we can then say, okay, this is for internet, this is for phone, this is for video.
Right.
And and the fact that I could just plug it into a PoE plus switch, and that with NDI can send video and power and control all through that one wire means it's less of a headache for the design team. I assume cost must go down because you're running less cable.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So your electrician's time and supplies, goes down. So I think that's huge to have the sort of the breadth of options. So no matter what type of install you're doing, whether it's a fixed install or a mobile, a one-off shoot, let's say, that you have the ability to plug it into whatever. Basically in the back of this, you have every plug that you can conceive of, and be good. No matter what the other end of it might look like. So image quality is key. Good focal length or zoom range is really important. Good autofocus and tracking, that's always important. And love the fact that these support dual pixel autofocus, or that they use dual pixel autofocus.
Yeah, that's a key technology that we've really leveraged across the Pro camcorder and the Cinema line to kind of give you that immediate, sharp, accurate focus that is key. Certainly, I think when you're when you're streaming, you're going from shot to shot. You don't want to have that lag of waiting for a focus to happen. You want it to be there. When you're there.
Certainly, if it's hard, especially if you're looking at like a small computer monitor, let's say, in a browser or something else, like you're on your laptop, like you may not really know if it's in
right, or if you're remote trying to control it, like, is that in focus to you? Is that looking in focus?
Exactly. Or like if you're in a typical stage environment, which may be dark, so you have like one person with a spotlight on, like you maybe aren't 100% sure. But when you have dual pixel autofocus, you can leave that part to the system to handle, and you can focus on framing, and no pun intended, but you can worry about framing and everything else, as opposed to like sitting there with a little focus knob and just confirming.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. So like, we leave the creativity to you, leave the technology to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, other things that they look for outside of image quality was controllability and options. So simple things as I think I mentioned to you on the phone, that when I first set this up, before I plugged in the controller, I was just sort of playing with the motor mechanisms and using the IR remote.
Right.
It was really refreshing that how easy it was to use, not just easy to use, but also how accurate it was. And I felt that if I was doing a solo presentation, I didn't have a crew, but I needed a PTZ, I could sit there, and if necessary, just use the remote control to reframe a shot, and then assign it to a preset. So if I'm going from this part of the stage to where you are, I can just hit a button, and I know the system will follow me. So that was key for us, and then we started playing with the actual controller, and then we started playing with the web-based tool, and then the Windows app that you guys have developed for this as well, and that's when we started to see all the other, possibilities. So things like like we mentioned already, focus and framing, but also painting and image exposure type of controls was key, because I think we're used to seeing those on a physical console, when you have like your black balance and your white balance settings, but now to see it in software form on a web browser basically is really key, especially in today's world where I may just be VPNing into someone's location, hundreds of miles away possibly. I may be 10 feet away or maybe hundreds of miles away, but I just have an IP address, and that's all I need to know is type in IP address, and I have a web GUI that does a lot of that for us. And then today when you showed us the Windows app, that was awesome. Able to see all 4 cameras on your laptop. Right. And just immediate, confidence to know that if I am the tech behind it, I can see the multi-view and go, all 4 or however many cameras I have are good. Right. I don't need to worry about image or exposure or anything else. Yeah, I think that kind of speaks to what the intent was. It wasn't really, I don't want to say it wasn't designed for a specific area of the market, but on the control side, whether it be just, one person in the IR remote, to an HDMI, that's fine. You can do that, it's fine. Or do you want to do, NDI control over a big network across the campus? Right. We could certainly do that. Or
like you said, with the Windows Windows app. Maybe that's the interface that you have, and you want to look at the 3x3 window with 20 cameras registered and be able to pick and control cameras. So I think we talked about the flexibility of the interface, but also there's the flexibility and the variety on the control side too. From a controller that can take up to 100 cameras to a remote control that can control as few as one.
Right.
All that's there.
And thank you for coming down. We love hosting you, and thank you again for bringing us all these new products for our tech team to take a look at and for myself to take a look at. So, for anyone interested in anything that Abel Cine has done as far as remote production goes, feel free to head over to abelcine.com. We've actually put together a few case studies. So, for example, if you're interested in reading more about the Emmys or the Golden Globes, there's great examples and some photographs that we've put up there as well. Also, check out abelcine.com for any of our upcoming classes. We appreciate it. And again, Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you. Really excited to get these in the market, get them out to you guys and for your customers. And for more information, you want to head over to pro.usa.canon.com to learn all about all the features and specs about the product. So once again, thanks a lot, Jeff.
It's our pleasure. No, it was a joy, absolutely. And anytime we get to see new gear like this, our eyes light up as well. So and thank you for bringing it to us and letting us spend some time with it.